gonna start recording. Awesome. Okay. And I'm gonna share my screen. All right, so this one is, we're actually like finally getting into section buyers 2 is what I call it, but it's just taken me a while because we've kind of gotten into more things, which is good too. All right, so in buyers 2, it starts with property data, and so it's making really strong. Oh my gosh, y'all, I love it when somebody comes on as just Zoom user because maybe it's a hacker. Hi, Zoom user. We don't see you or have your name. Can you hear us? Oh, yay. It's Carolina. Okay, yes. No hacker yet. Just waiting for more excitement in my Zoom world, but it's okay. We're glad you're here too. So.
I'm going to put my video off and on mute because I'm at work.
You're good. Okay, so we're going to start with talking about property data from a buyer perspective and then get into making strong offers. So I really hope this is like really a good meaty one to show you kind of best practices and what I'm doing when we're writing offers, just so that way you can have something to go by. I know it's tough when, when you're making offers and you're like, how are we losing out or how are we doing? And sometimes there are things that are coming into your offer that you really can't do anything about. They're FHA, or they really are not willing to go there on a price or not willing to go there on an option fee or whatever. But, if a buyer is willing to participate and get there, then hopefully we can really prep them for making the best offer possible, so that we can really dig in and have a really good offer to start. So I'm going to go over some of this stuff in concept, and then I'm going to go over one that we got accepted yesterday for a buyer, just so that way y'all can kind of see that process and all of that. And so what we did for that buyer, just like what we started with on nuts and bolts, we started going through all of this with them, right? We started with a buyer presentation, then we started with making sure that they had all their lender information and all that together, which actually they're a cash buyer, so that part wasn't as significant. But we also made sure that they had all their cash known and that we knew exactly where it was coming from and all of that. So we did all those pieces right up through showing, and then through this property data piece, and then to offer, and then to acceptance. So it really does work. It is not necessarily what everybody else is doing, but if you want to elevate and not be what everybody else is doing, then this is a great plan for you. Cool. Okay, so property data. So best practice for me is that I want the client to know all the information that I know about the house. Okay. And a lot of agents feel like that is overkill, that the client doesn't really want to know all of that data about the house. And I would agree. Potentially the client does not want to know all that data about the house. However, I always approach, y'all know, things from a courtroom perspective. And so if I am on the stand and the judge asks the buyer, or the buyer's attorney or whatever says, yeah, if you knew that this house flooded in the past, why didn't you tell that buyer that? And I might not have actually known it, but it was an MLS. If I had just looked at an old MLS listing, I could have seen that property flooded. Then to me, that is on me. I should have done more due diligence. I should have looked a little bit in the past to see if there was anything that had happened. And I should have shared that information with the buyer. And so instead, for me, I just want to have the same policy and procedure for every single buyer that I'm working for, is to flood them with data about the house. If they go through every little bit and pick out whatever nuances that are important to them, that's fine. But at least I gave them all of that data. Okay. So I get that it is a lot. I get that it's an extra step. I get it, but it just is such a great, to me, confidence builder for the buyer, because then they feel like they know everything that there is to know about that house, but also risk reduction tool for us because we have told them everything there is to know about the house. Part of that also is, what did the house sell for in the past? And I've gotten a lot of pushback on that over the years of agents of ours saying that is in no way the buyer's business to know what that seller paid for that house when they bought it whatever year ago that was. And that's really not fair for me to tell our buyer client what that seller paid for in the past. Okay, does anybody have any feelings or thoughts on that?
Why would it not be fair?
They're just saying like, well, you know, just because that seller got a good deal on the house back in the day and they're making, you know, so much money on the house, that you don't need to tell the buyer that. Like that's the seller's business, it's not the buyer's business. And I would say there's some truth to that, but it's also, when the buyer finds out, they're gonna be in their feelings about it somehow, right? And so if they find out about it before they make the offer, to me, that's the strongest way to be, versus finding out about it after they make the offer or after they've already bought the house and now they feel like the house is falling apart, and then they find out, oh, actually that guy bought it for this or whatever, and then didn't. So like Spencer and I bought a house years ago on Fireside, and I think the house was listed, I mean, no, this was a long time ago, but I think the house was listed at like 135 or something, and it was a stretch for us to pay that, but we got it together and we paid that. But I think the seller had bought the house for like, I think it was like $47,000 or something. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
It was like a huge discrepancy, right? So he bought it for 47, went in and rehabbed the whole thing, sold it to us for 135. Well, still, I mean, the rehab did not cost $100,000. The rehab probably cost $30,000, maybe $40,000. And so I knew, because I'm an agent, I could see in MLS where he closed it out at 47, and I could see that he has it listed at 135. We went into that with eyes open, totally willing to pay 135, it appraised for 135. Everything was okay at that. But if I hadn't seen that, and then I found out about it later, how would that make me feel, right? It just is kind of a gut punch of like, man, I wish I knew that the house was that trashed before that it sold for 47,000, right? And so that's the kind of thing that, to me, with giving a client property data, it's just laying it all out on the table. There's no question on transparency. There's no question on any of it. Like, we just want you to know I want you to know what I know. Here's everything that I know. Take what you want from it, right? So every single time I do this, I go through and I put together this property data package that has this plethora of information on here. And so I go through and pull all of this every single time. I'm going to pull a CMA, and I call it more of a confirmation CMA. So this should be a very easy CMA for you to pull. I go ahead and do 2 CMAs again, because I'm extra on some of this, but I do the quick CMA, which now I'm calling the list CMA. I don't know, it sounded better. It looks like a list. Maybe, I don't know. It's just my new thing that I'm calling it. So I pull the quick CMA and call it, or I pull the quick CMA on MLS and I call it the list CMA rather than quick CMA, because I don't think it sounds great, quick CMA. And then I pull the full cloud CMA. It should take me about 10 or 15 minutes total to get both of those done. And if you're doing these on a regular, which again, you should be doing these on not every house that you're showing, but every house that somebody is interested in making an offer on, you get really good at it, y'all. And it just shouldn't take you long. It's just go in, pull all that, send it over, we're good. So what I'm looking for on a CMA when I'm doing it at this point is I'm trying to determine, was that listing agent stretching for that price? Did they price it realistic, or did they even undercut the price a little bit because they're trying to get offers to go way over and then conveying that information to the client? Now, you might say, like, I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not totally confident in that I'm giving them the right information. Y'all, nobody is 100% sure. There's not like full on black and white clarity of exactly what the numbers will be. I just got off a call with Erin because we were talking about a listing that's coming on, and she wasn't sure, like, should it be 315? Should it be 325? Should it be 335? Should it be 340, 350? I mean, there is gray area on this. Okay. I mean, a significant amount of gray area. When you're talking about from 315 to 350, That's a lot of gray area. But use your best knowledge. That's why you're doing these all the time. That's why you're constantly looking at the market. You're the market expert. You should be pulling these often and looking at, hey, was I right? Was I wrong? How did I do on that one? How am I looking at this? I mean, if you are pulling a CMA for the very first time while you're, putting this property data package together to send to your client, then yeah, I could totally see where that is really a struggle. But if you're doing this, I mean, I would say that you probably need to be doing 5 to 10 CMAs every 2 or 3 days. I mean, this is not something that you need to just keep under wraps and that you're not doing often. Do them all the time, and then you'll get better at it. Any questions on CMA or how to do that part?
Well,
I mean, I know we've got a lot of classes out there and y'all know how to do CMAs, but it's just this should be the easiest CMA because we're really just trying to confirm what the listing agent had out there and make sure that you've got an idea of something to tell the agent about it. And I will tell y'all, I am seeing, because I'm doing these so often right now, I am seeing wildly different things from listing agents. Sometimes they're listing it right on. Sometimes they're listing it. I mean, it's just, it really is helpful for the client to have something to base off of so that they can kind of project what an appraisal might be on it.
Yeah, I mean, let me jump in for a second. So for those of y'all that have been witnessing the market we've all been in this for a while. Most of us have at least the last couple of years or so, even the newer agents that haven't been even in the last 6 months or so, you're seeing a market where laziness is not really, what's the word I'm looking for?
Agents aren't being held accountable for being lazy.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I'm trying to look at laziness is not being disciplined. Basically, they're not getting anything. It's not hurting them in a way of they can sit there and look at their a quick CMA and just throw a number out there what they think is going to be, and believe it or not, they get multiple offers or they get lucky at that point, right? But I was running stats. I told Amy this the other day. I was running stats just the other day in just Arlington and a few zip code. I think all of Arlington, and then I ran 013, 00102, a couple of zip codes just to kind of see what the list price to sales price has been over this last year, kind of starting from COVID, from the very beginning of COVID through really is like last week, so the beginning of March. So, and the list price to sales price is just astronomical. For ones that are actually taking the time and kind of pricing it right, they're selling for about 5% above their list price. That's like 105% list price to sales price. I've seen some that have gone up to as high as 130%, which is incredible. When you think about that, it keeps that average going high. But you're right, Elliot. I mean, the fact is that people can be a little lazier and not do multiple CMAs and things like that. So if you were to do that for your buyer, then you're going to show a lot more information, be a little bit more prepared as you go into these properties. And I'll say this at the same time, that it's hard not to be a little bit lazy too, because it's not to really jump in there and spend the time on doing the CMA because there's 7 offers already on the property. Right. And if you have to take the extra 10, 15 minutes, if you're not as fast at Cloud CMA or whatever it is, even doing a quick CMA and jumping in there, you feel like you're going to miss the boat. And we don't want y'all to miss that, but lean on us a little bit. Deanna, for example, I'm going to call her out a little bit. Deanna, on this one, had a listing appointment last week, kind of came up on her pretty quick. It was a last minute, hey, yeah, come over to my house and please let me know. And she was running some, just a kind of a quick CMA and she just reached out and said, hey, I'm just kind of curious, can you get an extra set of eyes? And looking at, that's kind of the time I've got for you guys, or anybody that kind of needs that little extra set of eyes, send those to me. Send me a quick explanation of the property or information about it. Send me your CMA and what your thoughts are on it. If you think it's going to be 125 or 135 or 160 a square foot, whatever that is. And I'll take a few minutes. It only takes me, like Amy said, I mean, really 5 to 10 minutes or so for me to jump in a quick CMA and even go grab a radius search and go to Cloud CMA, throw some differences between a couple of the listings that are out there and ones that have sold recently, and give you a really good idea while you're driving over to your listing appointment if it's that quick. Hopefully it doesn't have to be that way, but on those ones that are that fast, y'all lean on me for that because I can jump in there and hopefully help you guys out, save you a little time.
Yeah, and I think that is absolutely, we're here to help with that stuff. And it is something that some of these listing agents are just throwing these numbers out there. They're from Dallas, they're from wherever, and they're coming in with these really hot numbers that they aren't necessarily substantiated. So then what happens? If our client makes that offer at either that list or above that list, And then they pay a heavy option because we're making an aggressive offer on it to make sure that they get it. They're paying for an inspection, they're paying for an appraisal, they're paying their earnest money, and maybe they can get their earnest money back. But potentially if we have an appraisal failure after all of that, they can't get any of that money back. And so we're out $2,000 and 3 weeks of time that we didn't have the time or money to sacrifice on that. And so by really doing the CMA and making sure that they've got that up front, you're helping everybody save more time and actually get pushed through the system faster. Okay, so CMA is something that I provide for them. Either a realist tax report or an RPR report. I normally just do realist just because it's probably habit, but either one is going to give you that more tax data on it. So they're going to see what the tax assessed value is, what the taxes were last year, what the tax rate are. And then I love at the bottom of the realist report, it has the deed transfer dates and then any mortgage history. Again, that may be something that you're like, hey, that's over. I don't really need to give that to my client. Well, to me, it's public data. That's where Realist is pulling that information, right? It's pulling it from public tax records. Why would we not go ahead and provide it to the client? It's not something that we have to do a whole big like wave red flags and like, hey guys, did y'all see this? Did you see this? Did you see this? It's really just providing them the report. If they are somebody who really wants to dig through and wants to see all that stuff, then great. They had it to do that. If they don't really care, they love that the kitchen is painted white and they wanted a white kitchen, which that's a lot of our consumers, right? Then they don't care and they're just going to make the offer that they want to. But we have already done the work and done that risk reduction for us so that we're not on the hook if something comes back down the road that they're like, oh, I didn't know this home was foreclosed in the past, or oh, I didn't know that the tax value was this, whatever. We did provide it for you. I'm sorry that you didn't do all the due diligence to press open on that PDF, right? I mean, I can't force the consumer to do that, but I can at least send them the information to try. So realist tax report, a survey if there's one on MLS, and a T47 if they have it. I do ask the listing agent if they haven't included that on MLS, but sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. I don't hold up on giving them this data, waiting on documentation. I really just want to go ahead and get it to them so that that way they can start making a decision on what offer they want to make. HOA resale package. I know y'all know if we're representing a seller, I want to have that in before we list the house, but most agents don't. So, but if it's out there, I want to include that from MLS. A current seller's disclosure, a current MLS data sheet. So I'm going to pull down just the agent full report and I go ahead and have that in a PDF form and send that to them. Why do I have that? Well, I want them to see all of that information. I want to make sure that they have in writing everything that I have in writing on that. I've actually also started clicking on the pictures and sending them a picture PDF of all the pictures too. What we're seeing is that a lot of the agents are taking down the pictures after closing. And so I want to have some sort of record of what the house looked like when we sold the house as well. Old seller's disclosure. So I click on that little clock icon right underneath the pictures. And when you click on that, it'll pull up anytime it was listed in the past. And so I just go through that and go through each time it was listed in the past, print out an MLS sheet on it, print out pictures if there were those, print out the old seller's disclosure. And when I say print out, I'm just creating PDFs. I'm just creating a series of PDFs that then I'm going to send all those to the client. And then other information. So if there's something else that you know about that you're like, yeah, they might need to know about that, then send that to them. You know, if the property right behind them just got zoned by the school board for a new school or something like that, and you know about it, then yeah, you need to tell them about it. So if you have an article that you can add or whatever that is, then put that in there. And then if you can get a fee estimate from the lender regarding that property so that they can see with more preciseness, hey, here's what that house is likely going to have as a payment, because here's using the accurate taxes and our estimate for insurance based on that specific house. And so that way then the client can really make the best decision going forward on what they want to offer based on that too. So like I said, I don't hold the offer. I don't hold the offer. And if I don't have like a seller's disclosure or something like that, I just send everything. And then if I need to send a secondary email, then I'll do that. Some sellers are not going to disclose as much. So, you know, they may include a seller's disclosure without a attachment for a recent inspection report. So let's say that it went under contract, came back on the market. they really are, in theory, supposed to, if they're using that TREC contract, include that inspection report. Some sellers won't. I can't force them to. And so some of it, I've just got to prep the buyer for, this is what we were provided. You need to make the best decision with this data. Okay. Any questions on any of that? Okay, there's the confirmation CMA. Here's a sample of the analysis. I'm actually going to go into one that we did this week just so y'all can see it. Hold on. All right, can y'all see that for 1002 Crowley? With my unfortunate Saturday night after I'd been at a track meet all day, bomb. So I really do try to look a little bit better when I'm sending bombs than that, but this one I needed to get them out because the seller was making a decision Sunday morning, and so it was Saturday night. That's what they got. So anyway, so this is the kind of email that I send out when I'm sending a buyer client data on the house. And so you can see, like, this is a ton of attachments, right? It's a bomb video. And I like this screenshot from the Cloud CMA because it shows my adjusted prices over here. You know, if I'm talking to them in the bomb video about, hey, I did market analysis, whatever, they may look at all of these attachments and not know what, you know, which one even to open to see anything. And so that's why I pull out this screenshot on there, just so that I can have something to reference and talk to them about on the bomb. Then from there, so y'all can see it. Let's see, what do we have attached? So I have a realist report. Oh, I'm not trying to open it. Realist report, that MLS sheet, so the agent full report, MLS pictures, the survey on the property, the list CMA. So like I said, that's just our quick CMA. So just a basic quick CMA, not anything special on that. I mean, it is, but not. And then a full CMA. And so I'm calling the full CMA our Cloud CMA. And so then that just has all the information with pictures, and then with the adjustments that we made for square footage or whatever on there too. And then I have the offer that we're suggesting that they make on here. And so it has all of the information already done on that. Their buyer representation agreement, because we didn't have them sign that yet. The seller's disclosure. So all of that information already signed by the seller. And then the seller had sent us some extra stuff with the seller's disclosure. They had sent over an HVAC invoice. You know, again, not that that's a lot of anything for me, but, and then window repair. And then they also sent over some foundation information. And so I wanted to include that with where the pure maps are, which that's what I'm always looking for when I get foundation information, is the warranty, but also the pure map, so that way we can kind of have an idea of what it is. So all this data gets sent over to them with a video from me saying, hey, here's what I'm looking at on all of this. This is why I think this is the right number for you to go in with your offer. You know, I've attached everything. Let me know what you think. Okay. And so I send that all over to them. Then what am I going to get back? I'm going to get back either a call or an email. And so if they send me back something in writing that says, hey, all that looks great, let's go with the offer, then I'm going to take that email and save it in my file, because then that also showed, right, I sent them all that data, and then they confirmed that they not only, they got it, they replied to me and said they wanted to sign that offer. Okay, that's going to be a huge thing for me if I ever am taken to court where they say, hey, I didn't know that we were making an offer at 480, or I didn't know that there was foundation work that was done on that house, or I didn't know. Well, hey, y'all, not only did I send all this to you, but I also got an email back confirming that I got it. I don't have to have that email back. That's not something like I won't go forward if they just call me and go over it, because they're still going to sign it. But it's just, I want to think about it from how am I going to build my file to best protect me and them going forward. And so this is part of it. Any questions on this part, or y'all think I'm crazy for going that far overboard with that much data?
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's not a bad thing though. I mean, I've been saying this for years, especially from the title side, and just because, you know, folks, I've been not a part of, but I've helped dozens of agents draft up letters back to TREC after they've had a complaint, and now they're going to court and trying to get all this stuff figured out. At the end of the day, I just go, did you disclose X? Did you disclose Y and Z and all this type of stuff? And it comes back whenever we teach legal 1 and 2 on those sides, and we'll have one of those classes come around taught by an attorney of ours at some point, and y'all can jump in on that. One of the biggest parts about that class is what I call the triple D, which is disclose, disclose, disclose. And we always put as much information as we can out there, just for the simple fact of you never know what you make a judgment call because it's not important to you, what's important to your client. And that kind of goes back to everything, especially like the prices of how they bought a property before. I've actually had this come back to an agent one time, and it bit them in the butt, and they got a FREC complaint because they didn't disclose that the investor that flipped the house had made just a really, really good, good flip. Good for him. They made this much money. If they had told them, it might not have really mattered. They may have offered a little bit less. Maybe they did get the house. Maybe they didn't get the house. But at the end of the day, it was a big deal that somebody had come in and flipped the house and made $100,000 to them. And it wasn't a big deal until it was. And so I always just say, disclose as much as you can, put as much as you can in those emails, and it can always come back and at least you had the delivery of that information to your client.
Yeah. And like I said, they may not ever open it, but even if they don't ever open it, they feel like, dang, somebody is looking out for me. They are really going above and beyond, pulling all this information and sending it to me. Like, I feel like I got something from that buyer's agent rather than just, walking me around the house and making an offer and seeing if it would work or not. So I think part of that is part of this is just consumer mentality too, of like, how can we help the consumer feel like we did something? And then what do we expect from that? I've already talked to this client about like, okay, we're here to help. And so who do you know that we need to be talking to that are looking to buy in this market? And maybe they're scared to jump in because they're hearing about all these multiple offers. Well, we just won you the house that you really wanted in a multiple offer situation without paying an exorbitant amount of money, in my opinion. And so anyway, so that's what a lot of this is too, is that it's not even just about this deal. It's about how are we positioning ourselves to really get the most referrals and that kind of thing, and make it easy for a consumer to refer, right? I mean, if I'm sitting at, drinks with some people and everybody's talking about like, yeah, I would move, but man, I'm scared of this, or I'm scared I'm going to overpay, or I'm going to do this or whatever. And that client has the ability to say, well, yeah, I was scared of that too. But man, when we made that offer, like we had all this analysis and they said we only had to go 5,000 over versus, I mean, we were ready to go 20,000 over because we really loved that house. But when they looked at the numbers and all this, they really thought that 5 was the right number to go over. We agreed. And we actually got the house at 5 over. I would have overpaid by $15,000 if I hadn't had all that analysis to go off of, right? I mean, how strong is that from a referral perspective? So it's how do we get in that niche, and how do we get, really stand out above from a professionalism perspective? And that's really, y'all, a lot of that is not that hard. It's just printing old data and throwing it out to them and making them feel like they've got something. Okay. All right. Offer side. So the data and the offers, like it's all mush into one, right? Because we're really, the goal of providing all that data is so that we can really provide a very strong offer when we're going forward. So we talk a lot about pricing advice and how do we approach a client who is saying, hey, what do I offer on the house? And y'all have heard me say for a long time, I love saying, well, what do you want to offer on the house? Like, I'm like, that terrible therapist. It's like, how does that make you feel? I can't answer that for you. I need you to tell me what it is. And y'all, I mean, I say, if you haven't heard me say this, I say it all the time. I said it to these clients. I say it to all the clients, is I need you to be able to make the offer that you're most comfortable with, laying down in bed tonight and saying, okay, I put it all out there on the table. I wouldn't have offered 5,000 more, but also not where you lay your head down tonight and say, oh my gosh, I'm sick to my stomach because I feel like I overpaid for that house. I don't know what that number is for you. And it's different on every client, on every house. So that's why I provide, and I tell the client, that's why I provide you all this data, because I want you to be able to make the most informed decision for you, because that is an individual decision. I can give you advice on what I think will get it. And what I think would be like a really get it number versus a probably get it number versus a we could try number. But I really need to hear from you how aggressive you want to be, how much you want to go forward on it. So I'm constantly going back to asking the buyer, what do you want to offer? What do you want to offer? What do you want? I mean, y'all, I can't tell you how many times I say that, is really asking them and letting them drive the bus on that. I do have in here that if the buyer identifies repair requests on the initial showing that, or things that were revealed on the seller's disclosure that they're concerned about and would want to get fixed prior to closing, those really should be included on the first offer. So let's say that the back sliding glass doors are completely cracked. Like, somebody hit it with a rock, whatever, they're shattered. And the buyer is saying, well, I'm not going to buy the house with it like that. I really want them to replace that. Well, you don't need to wait for the inspector to say that that glass is broken. We saw it when we walked through the house, probably saw it on the pictures before you ever got to the house. And so even in this market where maybe the seller won't do it, if that's something that's important to the buyer, it needs to be on the initial offer. So just know if there are significant things like that, definitely ask for it up front rather than thinking that, oh, we'll negotiate that out during the option period. Go ahead and ask for it up front. If you've got a buyer that is making an offer that you really don't feel like you feel like is a waste of your time, their time, like it's not going anywhere. I do use that script a lot. Like, if you were the seller, would you take this offer? Do you think there's going to be any better offers than this? Something like that, just to try to help them kind of self-discover, hey, maybe I should be upping my offer. Maybe I should be figuring out what that number needs to be. Maybe I should be taking more advice from this. We say a lot of times, especially in this market, that sometimes buyers have to fail forward. They have to lose out on 3 or 4 or 10 offers, and then they start making aggressive offers. There's really no reason why they can't go ahead and make really good offers from the very beginning. Part of that is our job to really help them understand what it is, what an offer is going to take in order to make it there. And so, it's not anything different about that house that they make on the 10th offer. It's not like, oh, they somehow, like, I don't know, just got it because they liked their name or something like that. They got it because they started making better offers by that 10th house. So let's go ahead and really address it from the very beginning of, hey, these are ways that you can make your offer better. Are you interested in taking any of those? Or do you want to just, see what happens on this house and then move on to the next one? And when you say it like that, a lot of times they're like, well, but I don't want to move on to the next one. I like this house. I'm like, okay, well, if you like this house, then you're going to need to do some things to make your offer more aggressive. Here are some suggestions. And so really going through and making some suggestions on how to make their offer more, in my mind, aggressive without overpaying. Okay, that's what I'm always trying to balance, because I'm seeing so much out on social and just in general of all these agents like patting themselves on the back, like, oh, I won in a multiple offer situation. I got my client that house. Well, yeah, I mean, if you put an offer out there for $50,000 over a list with a full appraisal guarantee to the seller, whatever, yeah, I mean, I can get that offer accepted too. What I'm patting myself on the back about is when we're getting those offers that are just a little bit over, where the seller may, or the buyer may be paying over appraisal, but not in such a significant way where they are going to be unable to make up that ground within another 6 months or a year. That's what I'm really tagging off of right now, is saying, okay, yes, maybe we are going to pay over appraisal. Maybe we're going to pay a little bit over what the market would bear right this moment. But if we're looking at a 5% growth in the next year, where are we going to end up? Well, you're going to make up that difference within 3 months. It's going to take a month for us to close. So really, you're going to make that difference up within 2 months. I'm totally okay with that. That I'm like, and I can explain that to the client too, of like, hey, this is why we're going to pay a little bit over, because it's going to actually get you the house, and then you're going to grow that much more next year. Like, this is going to be a great investment for you. Okay. But being able to talk through scripts and think through that, and like even run numbers and say, hey, what if the equity growth was 5% next year? By the time we're talking at this time next year, the number would be this. Are you okay with offering this number back here then for it? Right? Hey, that kind of makes sense. Like, I want to go ahead and make that offer so that I can start my equity growth on this trajectory. Oh yeah, we did get to see the baby for a minute. Hi, Evie. I don't get to be Aunt Amy though. I've got to be like, what's Amy being Aunt Wise, Elliot? Is she going by Aunt Amy? Okay, so I need to be anti-A or something. You're muted, sorry. Okay.
Good that you can still tell what he's
Elisa's
saying.
sister's name is Amy too, so I can't be Aunt Amy, but.
Mouthing to you.
All right. Okay, so all that to say, and then really the buyer can choose to pay over appraisal. So that's what really we're looking for is, does the buyer want, is that what they want to do? Are they okay with that? And a lot of buyers are right now because we're explaining it in that way. Again, not maybe to the extent of using box number 1 on the appraisal addendum, but using box number 2. So that's what I'm really suggesting for a lot of buyers right now is saying, hey, when the seller listed the property, they should have been confident that the property would appraise for that list price. I've pulled the CMA. I can tell a story of why it would appraise to the list price too. So I'm good at that price. But anything that you're making over that list price, I would suggest that you be prepared to pay that amount in cash above and beyond your down payment, above and beyond your closing costs, if you want to make your offer more aggressive on that. You don't have to, but I would suggest you go ahead and do that. And I would suggest that we go ahead and on the initial offer, we include the appraisal addendum with box number 2 checked, where it has the list price in there, right? So let's say the property is listed at $350, we're offering $360. I want to say like, hey, as long as it appraises for list, we're going to pay up to $10,000 over, right? I do think that's appropriate in this environment anyway. Any questions on that or things y'all are seeing related to appraisals or any of that?
I always tell my clients that, and I'm sorry, of course she's about to start crying. But I always tell my clients what I think I can make sense of appraisal for. And because typically what it is it's $5,000 or $10,000 that they're struggling to get over, which, amounts to $30 on a 30-year note. Right. And so I can usually get them over that hump. But I always say, look, you need to have an amount that you're comfortable paying over appraisal, but understand that I can make sense of the number. You may not even pay that. You're just giving them the security up front that you would so that we can get them under contract. Now, understand that you could be out this money. So it could go the other way. But, we just got to kind of roll the dice and see what happens. And so that's where I've had a lot of luck, just getting people up just a little bit, because typically it's usually $5,000 or $10,000 that they are off, that I think is going to excel them from being just a average Joe offer to a really strong offer.
Yeah. And I'll tell you from my perspective, if you're not using the appraisal addendum and really showing your hand to the seller of like, hey, we are willing to go to bat for, and pay the difference between this price and this price. It's not perfect. It's not saying like, hey, number 1, hey, seller, you have no worries on the appraisal, because I think that puts the buyer at way too much risk. But using number 2 does give you just more security that you're giving to the seller of like, hey, we have already had this conversation. We are ready to go. We're really making a significant offer here. Because to me, if I get an offer, let's say the house is listed at $350 and I get an offer at, $365, $375, $385, $400, I'm not even really presenting that offer as a $400,000 offer to the seller, because I know there's no way that that's going to work. There's no way that they have that difference to cover, because I already ran the numbers and it is not ever going to appraise for that high unless I'm getting some sort of appraisal guarantee. Like it just can't just go up and up and up and think that that's going to be the same. So anyway, so I think that is definitely consider doing that and explaining to the client, hey, this is what this looks like, and making sure that they're aware really back in that buyer presentation, like I said, so that when we get to this point, it's not a surprise that we're asking them to consider making an offer over appraisal, because they were prepared from the very beginning. Cool.
Yeah, guys, with that as well, on the appraisal, then as you're getting into representing a buyer that's putting in an offer on multiple offers, that they're coming in over asking price, and you're getting to the point of now where that you should be including that appraisal addendum with it. If you have any questions about that form, please reach out to Amy or myself. Shoot me a text. I'll call you as soon as I can. Jump back on there, kind of start talking through the numbers, see if box 1 or 2 works best. Explain what box 3 really means. And what that does, especially if you're on the listing side and you see a box 3 come in, what that's going to have your seller actually, redisclose at the time of the appraisal coming in, short or not. And along with that, when you get to the point, even I would say this, not even with necessarily multiple offer situations, y'all, but if you get to a situation where you're seeing just a overpriced house, one that's too high, and you're putting in an offer, if you have ran comps and you've done a CMA and you don't give your personal opinion and your CMA doesn't support the list price on there, there might still be a time to use this addendum, okay, to protect your buyer on there. It's not just for multiple offer situations. It's in there just in case your buyers can afford to bring quite a bit of cash to the closing table and you feel like this list price is a little high. You think that your offer itself might still be a little high and you're just banking that hopefully, cross my fingers, we appraise, right? You can also utilize this addendum to protect your buyers at that point too, especially your higher qualified buyers, your high payroll, your doctors, your dentists, whatever it is like that. Keep them protected on those things and call us if you have questions on how to do that.
Yes, very good point. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so multiple offers. The other thing to just know, and you probably know this already since we're dealing with this so often right now, but is that the seller does not have to call for multiple offers. They don't have to call for highest and best. The rule is that if they tell anyone in the mix that there are multiple offers, then they should tell everyone in the mix that there are multiple offers. I will tell you, for me, I totally wait on seller guidance before I say anything about multiple offers. When people call and say, hey, is that property, do you have offers on that one? How good are they? Are they cash? Could I get something in financed? Maybe I could get something in contingent. They'll ask you all these questions, buyer's agents. And my response is maybe bitchy, but it's like, hey, if it's still active on MLS, we are still accepting offers. I would encourage you to get the highest offer that y'all are comfortable with in as quickly as possible, because we're presenting them as they come in. And that's all I leave it at. And so, until we accept an offer, that's when it goes into either active option, active contingent, pending, whatever the case. But if it's active, I'll look at any offer that's out there. If the seller decides, hey, I want to go ahead and call for highest and best offers at a certain time, that's fine too. They can do that. And so I'll do that and let everybody know that that's the timeline. But the sellers don't have to do that. So, and sometimes that can work to their disadvantage. So if they, like right now, I'm seeing properties that before they're even listed, the listing agent is putting out a number or a date of, hey, we will review all offers here, get highest and best offers in by this. They're not even saying that there's multiple offers. They're just calling for highest and best and saying that. Well, that does provide some disincentive for some people to go out and show that house, because they're like, well, my person would only offer list. And so we're just not even going to bother showing that house, that kind of thing. So it's not something that just across the board, there is definitely going to be a call for multiple offers and a highest and best. And so from our buyer perspective, we want to make sure that they are making the best offer possible from the very beginning, that they're not monkeying around with, oh, I'm going to make this offer because I think they're going to come back at this, and then they're going to come back at this, and then they're going to come back at this. And that's where I wanted to end up. I really tell them, I'm like, that might have been the case when you bought your last house 15 years ago, whatever. That is just really not the circumstance right now. In this market, I need you to make the best offer that you're comfortable with and leave it all on the table. Don't think that they're going to come back to you and try to negotiate it past then. If they do try to come back and negotiate it past then, you always can say no. So I would rather you do that than have this expectation that it's going to come back and forth. I don't know if y'all are seeing anything different on that. There are some different price points where there is a little bit more back and forth. I would say in the over 500 range, there sometimes is some back and forth, but honestly, even there, I still am advising the same way. Just make the best offer that you're comfortable with up front, leave it there, and then see what they say. Any questions on any of that, or? Okay. And then So these are just offer recommendations. Y'all know we've done another class on this recently. And so some of these, I might say you even need to go a little more aggressive on, but I'm going to run through them. I'm not going to go over a lot of them in a lot of detail, but if y'all want me to pause on one, like say something and then we'll pause and go over more detail. So when you're starting with an offer, I normally start with the zip forms template. I want to make sure everything is as accurate as possible. I want to make sure that there doesn't have to be a back and forth over something that I messed up on the actual forms. I want it to be really strong so that way that seller can just sign it and go on and we're done. So I want to confirm the legal and address. I want to add any exclusions from MLS. And then if minerals are excluded, remember that's not in the exclusions paragraph, the exclusions part in paragraph 2, that's going to be on the separate addendum. I normally am going to default to using the listing agent's title company. Andrew may have a different suggestion from that after being entitled for so long. And I was entitled for a long time too. I don't want to potentially lose the offer over not using the listing agent's title company, or I might want to call and have a conversation with them about how important that is to them. Is that really something that the seller picked, or is it something that the listing agent picked? But whichever way we go, I want to try to be as clear about what closer is on the property, the address for the property, the address for the title company, the phone number for the title company, because there are a lot. I mean, like for a while we had 3 Providence titles in Burleson. And so I don't want there to be some confusion of where does it go. I thought it was closing with this girl, but they thought it was closing with this. Like, let's just get everybody on the same page from the very first time we make the offer. Really 1% earnest money down is minimum. I'm seeing a lot of offers with over that now. So I would consider something over that too. It doesn't have to be way over that, but definitely plussed up over 1% might help. I still say seller pays for title. Y'all may argue with me on this. I'm seeing a lot of offers where buyer pays for title, and that is fine. The buyer can pay for title, but it really is the same situation if the buyer is paying for title as making an offer over appraised value with an appraisal guarantee, right? Because ultimately that is true expense to the buyer. I think a lot of agents are just like, hey, you should offer to pay the title policy. It's going to make your offer look better. Oh, okay, that's great. Check. Well, that's $2,000 that just came out of their pocket that the seller, would have, maybe traditionally paid or whatever, but it does add to their bottom line. And that may add from what their lender had told them was their closing costs and that kind of thing, because the lender had assumed that the seller was going to pay title too. So it's not something that there is really any assumption at this point. It is definitely fair game, negotiable, but I just don't want you to think like, oh, buyer paying title is going to be enough to get it, whatever. It's still going to be the overall net, what the seller is making overall, and what the guarantee is as far as what y'all are willing to pay from an appraisal perspective. So there are definitely ways to think about and maneuver with that, but just know that that's not just free money. It is definitely coming from somewhere. I still have the buyer pay for shortages and area coverage on the title policy in paragraph 6A. I have the buyer pay for a new survey if we use 7C1. So like if we're using 7C1 where we're using the existing survey, if the existing survey for some reason doesn't work, then I go that it would be paid for by the buyer. Hopefully it's 0 on that. If the property's in an HOA, make sure to mark it correctly, have the HOA addendum, and then I normally am going to give the seller as much time as they want to. Why? You may know why we give the seller so much time on getting all the HOA docs to them. Because it's a free option for the buyer, right? Buyer can back out, terminate the contract at any time until they get that HOA documentation in because of something that they don't like in the HOA docs. So I don't care. They can have all the way up until closing if they want to get us the HOA docs because we've got that free out. And then I still love making an offer with a basic home warranty in there between $399. I've actually upped it to $439 because we've been using super home warranty lately. But I think a home warranty is actually a risk reduction tool still. It's not great, but it definitely does help both sides of being able to have something to protect them in the event of a more immediate repair need post-closing. And so I look at it as a benefit for the buyer and seller, and I try to sell it that way to the seller. If there's a seller's disclosure, either online or that you've gotten, then I have the buyer sign that and include that with the initial offer. Close in 30 days. Like really, there should be no reason to close over 30 days right now, but there are some. And so if there is a reason, then go to the seller and explain why, you know, talk with the listing agent. Don't just send an offer over and don't have anything to say to the listing agent. Make sure you're in dialogue with them and making that offer look as good as possible for them going forward. If the buyer needs closing cost assistance, then you're probably dead in the water right now. But if you need it, like I would definitely consider raising the list price and trying to get it to appraise for that higher amount so that the seller is not actually out those dollars. Include your notice email address for the buyer. So paragraph 23, you want to make sure you've got a notice email address on there. More than 7-day option, like why right now, right? I'm seeing 5 as kind of the standard, but 7 definitely would be the max. And then definitely more than $100 for option. I would say 500 would be really my low end right now as far as what an option fee should be. But you know, and potentially up to 1,500 to 2,500 even. Like if you really want to get an offer accepted, that's a great way to go. Now, are you putting your buyer at risk for that, however much that is? Yeah, they are. They are participating in that risk decision though, right? They're understanding that, hey, I'm going to pay that option fee and it's gone. And I'm going to pay an inspection fee and that's gone. And I'm going to pay an appraisal fee and that's gone. But because I've gotten so much data to them up front, I'm helping them really along with this decision. A lot of times they would rather do that in a strong position and make sure they get that house than pay way over appraisal or pay something that's really high. And so it's just a balance game, right? Of they've got to, again, make that decision of how far do they want to go. But option fee is definitely something that we're pressing on to really make sure that our offers are really being considered as a realistic option.
Real quick, sorry, Amy.
Yeah.
It's y'all on the, I know it sounds crazy to say, kind of at first it sounds steep to say, hey, $1,500 or $2,000, whatever it is for an option to have 7 days to do an inspection, whatever it is, but don't project your own feelings about something onto your buyers. Okay. Sometimes your buyers, if you look at them, I've asked people before, if I've worked with a lot of poker and card players. I've asked a guy before, hey, what would you walk up to a blackjack table today and drop down? What color chip would it be? And you not care about necessarily if you lost. Okay. And if that number's $500 or $1,000, whatever that is, and they're comfortable putting that down for an option period of 5 days because they can get their foot in the door faster, they'll be on the top of the stack of offers. And you would at the same time not hide away from that either. You know, it's on page 8, 7 or 8, whatever the termination option period is right now. It's about to be on page 1 or 2.
Yeah.
You're pretty close here pretty soon, but highlight that when you put your offer over. Hey, FYI, we've given you X amount on this. We kind of put some bullet points in your email. Oh, and by the way, don't shy away from the $1,000 option fee that we only want 5 days to do an inspection. Because I promise you that looks really good. And if you are in a multiple offer situation or just any type of situation where it's a good market on that property, ask your buyers if they're comfortable doing that. Explain the risk that, hey, yeah, if you decide to back out, if the inspection comes back poorly, then yes, you're not going to have that money back. You're going to lose that money. But if you've done a really good job, if they've had foundation work done and you already have a copy of the foundation blueprint and the warranty of that lifetime warranty is coming with and all those type of things, like Amy just kind of said, do your research. If you feel pretty confident that, hey, barring a major issue that the HVAC is not cooling, well, at that point, maybe there's some seller's coverage or things like that they get fixed, but those sellers are going to have to fix that to sell the house anyway. So get as much as you can up front. And if you feel like it's a pretty solid house at that point, raise that option fee up and get yourselves in the door, get yourself to the top of the list, and you'll find really good success in getting offers accepted.
Yeah, it's all about setting expectations, right? And so setting expectations for the buyer from that first buyer presentation of, hey, this is really what it's going to take to make your offer stand out from an option fee perspective. And helping them understand too, hey, on the back end negotiation, just so you know, like there's not going to be a whole lot of money on the table for a lot of repairs. Know that we're still in competition even after we get accepted, because if we go in and put on the table that we want $5,000 or we want, I mean, even 2,500 in this market may be too much. We're going to fight for you, but ultimately you need to understand when you're putting that heavy option fee down, it's because you are planning on closing on that property, barring anything huge that we did not know about prior to going under contract on it. And so that's where that is a pretty strong amount, but you are going to get it credited to the sales price. So yeah, I mean, $2,500 may sound like a crazy amount for option, but it is going to come back to you if you close. And the plan is for you to close, Mr. Buyer. So let's go ahead and put a big number out there, because it really just becomes like earnest money at that point. So sorry. All right. Fill out page 9, which actually that's moving to page 10. So that's the page with all of the other agents information. Make sure that you have it totally filled out correctly. Y'all, I mean, just offer after offer after offer come in with nothing filled out on page 9. Then that puts it on the listing agent where they have to fill it in. Was the buyer really properly disclosed? It just does not look professional. Make sure you've got that done. Don't ask for more than 20 days on a third party. I will tell you, really probably 10 is more appropriate at this point. No, that's not saying that you're going to have the appraisal done in 10. That's just saying that the buyer is going to get all of their documentation over and make sure that they're kind of okay, that they've had their tax returns looked at, that they've had their paycheck stubs looked at, that they've had, and everything looks like things are going forward, and that they as a person are going to get approved. Does not have anything to do with appraisal, insurance, anything like that related to the property. It's just them. Okay.
Y'all don't stop or hold back from calling the lender on that and asking them how they really are. Make sure they have verified those things, and then you can pop the 10 days in there, whatever it is. If they're self-employed or just recently went to a new business or whatever it is, ask the lender, hey, how are we looking on this? Are you going to verify these things within 10 days or whatever it is? And one thing I just want to kind of chime in on this, on the offers, y'all keep in mind as you go throughout the process that 10 days or 20 days, whatever that is a very critical date on certain things. So if you ever do any extensions, we just had this, Tammy and I did on a deal where we had to extend because of all the winter weather and everything. We extended the option period so many times. By the time we came out of option, we had 1 day left over for the third party financing. And so it was like, holy, so during that time, thank goodness the lender was doing their job and getting everything taken care of. But just verify your buyer's creditworthiness, their pay stubs, all that stuff has been submitted. And then you should be fine at a 10-day or 15-day on that.
Yeah. And really, you can do all that stuff before you ever make an offer, and then have that match like your option period, or have it where you don't use that paragraph 2A of the third party financing. Like, make sure that the client understands what you're asking for there. Because if you ask for 20, let's say 21 days, used to be kind of a standard. Well, if you ask for that in this market, like, I'm going to put your offer kind of down to the side, because why did you need that long? Why were you asking for that? Like, that just doesn't fit in this market. And so it's going to make me question some why. And so again, you have the power to make sure that that offer is the best case scenario for your buyer, and making sure that they understand some of those nuances on there. If you're asking for non-realty items, so that would be like refrigerator, washer, dryer, whatever, offer a fair market value for it. So don't think that they're just going to throw it in, like try to offer a little bit for it. Send offer as one PDF. It's just more of my pet peeves. Like, I don't want to have 18 PDFs that I have to open of, here's the offer, here's the third party financing. Oh wait, here's the seller's disclosure in 6 different pages because they took a picture of it with their phone and they sent me 6 picture images. Y'all, it just shows professionalism. Scan it all in as one. Hopefully you're getting it electronically signed anyway. And so it's just all one document. It really does show from the very beginning that you're an agent that they want to work with, because you have your crap together. You're ready to go. Leave showing time feedback with your contact information, which is a little bit shady, but I like it. Letting them know that an offer is coming. The reason why I want to do that is because if the agent has it set up where showing time feedback goes automatically to the seller, then if the seller is reviewing offers and for some reason my offer is not in that mix, they can stop and say, hey, remember that email that I got? This said that Amy Cornell was sending an offer, but I don't see her offer in here. What was that like? And so, again, I don't think that we're going to catch anybody on that necessarily, but I just want to make sure that we get presented, that the seller knows that we want to be in the mix. And then I text and email the agent knowing that the offer is coming. When I'm on the phone with the listing agent before we write the offer, I ask them, is there anything that we could do to make our offer stronger? I will tell you, like a lot of times they will vomit information about what the situation is for that seller and how we can do that. And so don't shy away from that. I think it really does help, and it shows that you are trying to help get this deal done. So maybe they are in a situation where they're getting divorced and this guy needs this and this guy needs this or whatever. That's okay. Go ahead and gather that information and then get it to the buyer so that they can make a better decision going forward on it. I have a policy where all of my lenders, I copy on the offer when I send it. And so I want to make sure that they're calling the listing agent to confirm that that buyer is really able to close without contingency and that they're ready to go. So do that. Make a fair offer. You know, I tell people all the time, if you're making an offer that you know is not going to get accepted from the very beginning, then there's not really a whole lot of point to this. So really making a good offer, include your pre-qual letter with the offer. I would try to write an email to the listing agent when we're sending the offer, addressing any issues they may question. And then I also let them know if there's a relationship between us, if possible. So if there's something like I'm writing an offer for Elliot and he's my cousin, like I might say like, hey, this is my cousin. It just makes, to me, that offer stand out a little bit more than if I was writing an offer for a Zillow contact, because I know Elliot's not going to run away and not pay his option fee or something like that because he's my cousin, you know, so it just helps to like tie things together a little bit more. It's not required, but it does to me help a little bit. I have on here, consider using letter from buyer with pictures, but y'all know I do not. I would like you to consider not doing that because we're in an environment now where we are seeing more litigiousness regarding those letters. So I would say that that's off the table at this point. I would really just have your email, set that aside. You don't have to say anything about, you know, race, obviously. I mean, what would you even say, right? But, you know, you can say something about the client without it being, you know, letting anyone know anything, private information or anything about that. And so that way, then you're in control of that. Be nice, maintain a stellar reputation for seeing contracts through to close. I think that definitely is part of it too. Really having that really strong reputation in town will help you get that much farther. And hopefully Front's reputation will help you with that too. So this is an example of like a letter that we wrote. This one was a difficult one because they had the property listed too high. And so we made an offer significantly under. And so I was trying to explain why we made the offer significantly under. I can show you this one. So this is the one that went with all the data that I sent over on the other. This was just as much of the email that I sent with this offer. It wasn't a whole lot. It's really just, hey, we've prepared a strong offer, finance, whatever, at whatever. And then I try to include just a little bit about why we offered that and what, you know, what the situation is on it. I do copy the client every time I send over an offer. And some people think that that is really too much too. Like that's a lot to copy the client on it. You know, what if the client doesn't like something I say, or what if they like, I don't know, whatever. Again, that to me is part of that transparency, is that I want them to see exactly what I said to them and know that I didn't have any sort of side deal with them. I didn't talk to them and say, hey, we're going to make an offer at 450, but really we'll go to 480 or whatever. Like we were all on the same page with it. And so that's why I go ahead and copy the client on it. And then I also copy their lender so that their lender knows to call right away. So I've got a bunch of people copied on it. I've got a bunch of verbiage on it. It's really just, you know, pretty easy to get out and not feel like, just once you get used to it, just get it out, just press send, don't freak out about it. Just get it out. Don't stress too much about that part of it. Cool. All right. Any questions before we wrap up? Do y'all feel like ready to make offers now? Feel confident? Haley does. Yeah. Deanna. Yes. Shara, Tammy, everybody, like, yeah. Okay, I know what I'm going to do now. I mean, y'all knew already, but I really do hope this helps. I mean, really, I will tell you, this is what we're doing every day. And if you're not doing it every day, pretend. Go pick a property, go preview it, pull your numbers, do your CMAs, send over your information to your brother or Kat or somebody. And then, not Catherine Kat, but you can send it to Catherine. She'll help you with it too. Practice it, then practice writing up the offer, and then track that property, y'all. Like say, okay, I would have suggested an offer at this. What would have happened? And watch it over time. Watch as it goes under option, and then if it goes into pending, and then when it goes to close, and be like, haha, I would have gotten it, or I would have done this, or man, we wouldn't have gotten it. We would have been whatever. But this isn't something that is just like inherently known. You do have to practice some of it. So don't be afraid to practice them. And if you have any questions, really, Andrew or I are here. Just call. Happy to talk through any of it with you.
Okay, so I got a question before we let y'all go. How many of you, I'm staring at you on the screen now, there's 8 people on there. How many of you have buyers right now that you're working with that are either starting to look at houses or whatever it is? Okay, I see a couple of hands. 1, 2, 3. Okay, everybody has a buyer you're working with. How many of you are submitting an offer today on a house? Okay, Kat is, awesome. Okay, nobody else is? So I encourage you, if you have time, if you're not working a second job, like Carolina, you do your thing, okay? Get it, maybe after work for you today. Take one of the properties they're looking at that's on their search, run a CMA on it, okay? If you haven't done it in a while, do a cloud CMA deal. If you haven't done that in a while, let me know. I'll zoom in with you and help you out with it, okay? Put together an offer set like you would for somebody and just practice it today, okay? Like I said, it shouldn't take more than 10 or 15 minutes. And if it takes you an hour today to do a quick CMA and a cloud CMA and some differences on there, it's just good practice, like she just said, because today, training yourself on doing some of those CMAs and pulling some of those old documents. If you haven't clicked on the history of the listing of one of the properties they're looking at, and you not even know what that little tab is, go practice that today. Okay. The history tab tells you a lot. It tells you the story behind the listing that's out there. And it's super helpful for you to have information for your buyer that another agent's probably has not given them. And you're going to look really, really smart and good in front of your client. But it gives you a lot to be able to offer when you do write the letter to somebody. You say, hey, I realize, like fantastic purchase, whatever it was, it gives you some inside information that you can put into your email when you do submit an offer over. So I encourage y'all to try that out. Okay. If you're not doing anything today big on that, get your priority things out of the way. When you have a half hour, an hour, do it. Run a CMA, drop an offer, curious what it might be. I'll give you a story and then we'll kind of let y'all go. And this is separate from an offer. Actually, this is one that came on the foreclosure list about 2 months ago. And I have some really good friends of mine that are looking for a personal property for their daughter actually. And they were looking anything on there and they found this property over off Davis, North Davis Street, over not far from Arlington High. And they want to be in a certain area and they love this thing. And Amy, I think I already bored you with the story, but it's a great story to kind of know and be prepared, because one of the things we looked at, and she was not prepared going to the foreclosure auction and being able to be a willing buyer on this. Let's just say it had been a listing. She wasn't prepared to put in a good offer, but she said, I wish I had been, because if that house sold for anything less than $300,000, I'm going to shoot myself, is what she said. And I was like, no, you're not, but I'm curious. Let's see. So when the results came out, and what I would do is put yourself in the position is keep an eye on a property, flag it, get the emails. And when you see that it's closed, look and see what it closes for versus what you may have put the offer in at. And it trains you on the market, today's market, what it is. Because I'll tell you this, on one that she said she would have offered $300,000 for the house sold for $235,000 at the auction. And she lost a massive amount of equity and an opportunity for her personally. And it was just about being prepared. And that's why we do these things on a daily basis. Why I encourage y'all to sit back when you have time today and go run a couple CMAs and fill out an offer and keep an eye on that one house for the next month or so, and maybe not even that long with the market right now. And you'll be surprised, dude. You might surprise yourself at what you may have offered on that thing, what it actually sells for, and including concessions or whatever it might be. But take a look at it. I promise I'll tell you this. If y'all want to partner up with me on that, text me and I'll partner up with you. We'll Zoom, we'll do a CMA on it, and then we'll watch that property over the next 30, 45 days and see where it ends up and what it goes for. And that's a great educational experience for you guys to learn your niche market here in the area. So if you want help on that, let me know. And we'll look forward to seeing y'all next time.
Cool. Good to see y'all.
Andrew, what is your phone number?
My phone number.
If we do need it, just if we
If you
need
do
it,
it.
because I don't think I have it.
Yeah, and I'm still making my way around the list of agents for us to touch base with everybody. So my number is 817-360-2085.
Thank you.
Okay, and if y'all just keep your thing up there, I'm dropping it in. If you don't already have it, it is now